Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minions with me this evening are Donkey,
Yes.
Sora, who's having a little bit of internet trouble, so
She's-
might be able to respond at the moment, or might not. I just saw that she unmuted herself. Are you going to say hello, Sora?
She might.
Or it might be during one of the cutouts. So I'll move on to Adam, who just joined us.
Oh.
There we go. I heard an... Oh, how you doing, Adam?
Are we live?
Yes.
We are now.
Oh, salve, brother. How's it going? Wait, we're live? Okay.
Yeah, we're live.
Shit.
It's
Oh,
2
dude,
minutes
wait.
past the 30, so
Yeah, the
we are
clock
live.
is. Oh, my apologies. Well, how's it going, everybody?
Doing well, just doing the introductions. Sora's having a little bit of internet trouble at the moment, so she might not always be able to respond. She is currently muted up again, so I'm going to... Once she unmutes, I'll give her another chance to say hello. But until then, we also are joined by a traveling exhibit of Moonshock.
Hello.
And as it is a Friday, of course I'm the keeper for this evening, Sanguine. How are all of you doing tonight?
I can't complain. Everybody knows. Well, I don't know about everybody, but people have known what I've been going through. So, all things being equal, I am doing much better than usual.
That's good to hear, and it's always better than the alternative when you can't complain.
Oh, trust me.
Yep.
I can complain about something today, but I'll keep it to myself.
Fair enough. Shall we go to Adam? How about you? How's your day going?
Huh?
I'm going to take that as slightly delayed.
Well, I mean, I thought we had our intros, and then usually you'd go after the intro to what you cooked for the evening, but
Oh no, I'm normally polite. I go to niceties first, and then I go to what I'm cooking or what I've cooked.
Oh.
And we're still at the niceties point, so I just got the introductions of telling people who you schmucks are, and now I'm going through the nicety of asking you guys how your days were.
all right. Well, before I left work, because it was Friday. The past week we've been working overtime to try and kick a lot of the workload off. So Friday today we were pretty much just goofing around, and I sent a bunch of notes out to try and get people to see a specific note where it goes, hey, this is for you. And then, hey, what's the note? These nuts. And
Nice.
so right before I left work, oh shit, didn't I take a picture? I took a picture of it too. Because they were like, hey, the boss, the head guy of our location, I guess, because our company has a bunch of units in different states, and so Illinois, we've been kicking ass. I'd like to think it's because of me. Just saying.
I
But,
do also have to say, I was very tempted to say it's good to hear that your company didn't have a mandatory castration policy when you said that you had a bunch of units.
or decimations. Oh,
Yep.
we don't want to go there.
Decimation is good for morale.
I think they're doing that in Arizona location, to be honest.
Beating shall continue until morale improves.
Well, I think I said it on an earlier show, but yeah, no, the they're looking at sending one of our crew to Arizona to try and help them pick up. So, but yeah. Anyhow, so Friday today, we were pretty lenient on our workload, and our head boss was fixing up a laptop, getting all his laptop, his documentation, all that set up, and we had already been goofing off on sending notes on people. Hey, this is for you. What's this note? Oh, D's nuts. Haha, you got D's nuts. And our tech supervisor was like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave this here. Don't worry about sending a note on it." So my stupid ass decided to go and be like, let's make a really funny one. So I cut up a text bit and I pasted it on. It looks like a fucking, like, haha, I kidnapped somebody, and you can find it here with like the newspaper clippings or the magazine clippings. And so I did that, and I put D's nuts, and I put it in there. And after he closed the laptop down, he's like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, this is for the site manager." And I'm
Go
like,
straight to the boss,
shit."
man. Yep.
So I might not have a job on Monday. We'll see.
Either that, or your boss might be laughing hysterically.
Or he accepts D's nuts.
Or thinks it's an invitation.
Holy shit, it's Sora.
Hey, Sora. Now you can say hello, as I was trying to allow you earlier. Or not. The internet just died immediately after that.
But yeah, it's a surprise D's nuts. You gotta keep it, active if you're gonna be doing office hijinks. Sanguine.
Well, next would be Donkey asking how his day is, since Sora's
Oh.
cutting out, and then I'll get to my food.
Well, come on, Donkey. What's his day? I'm Donkey.
Do you wish for me to spurg out about my day, or would you want a short version, Adam?
Spurg out, dude. I love it.
Spurg out, followed by dead silence. He was not expecting this response, and he has no clue how to respond.
No, the cork was unplugged, and then you just heard a belly of laughter. I love it.
Well, I'm having a much better day now. Thank you, Adam.
Well, and that's why I love it. I aim to please.
But are you going to expand upon that at all, or shall I just leave that conversation where you fucking dropped it and left it dead?
Oh, it'll be picked up later. Don't worry.
Okay. So it's just been knocked out and it's laying in a pool of its own.
Hold on. So you're teasing us?
Spit and vomit.
Is this a Canadian thing to tease people?
And I like the braying ensues.
Yeah. Nothing comes from that.
Yep.
No, just waiting.
All right. So we'll save it for later. Put it in our
And
back
I
pocket.
did not cheat I did not treat Tyrannus. I won fairly. I just stomped you motherfuckers in the final round every goddamn time. So for those who weren't tuned in last night, on Johnny's night, he did Jackbox quiz shows.
Ooh.
So I came in first, the first two quiz shows, came in second, the third. Then we did 2 rounds of the Murder Hotel game. And the first one, I won a grand total of $0 because I was in it for sport, I fucking came back, won the goddamn game with $0. Fuck everyone. And then in the next game, I again was trailing, not completely in the final round during the escape, but then I absolutely stuffed it. I stuffed it. I stuffed them when it came to that final round because I overtook and then won, earning like $5,600 or something like that in the second game of Murder Hotel. So, fuck yeah, I won fair and square. In fact, I had a handicap of $0 in that second to last game. But I'm doing rather well. And Sora's still having trouble, I'm assuming, because she hasn't unmuted again. So I'll go on to my day. I'm doing fairly well. I had a rather standard day, woke up, decided what I'm making for dinner, and started doing some of the prep for that. So I have a few lovely, lovely pork chops sitting off to the side of me here that are currently tossed in some seasoning, a little bit of a green hot sauce that I splashed over it, rubbed it into the pork, just letting that perfume the entire chop. That's going to be going into a screaming hot cast iron skillet, getting a nice sear on it. Then I'm going to slice that up and toss it into a tortilla with some cotija cheese as well as some Chihuahua cheese. And then have just a lovely little quesadilla. I'm thinking of going for... Actually, I haven't decided which beer I'm going to go with because I've told you guys about Open Gate before, right? Open Gate Brewery.
More alcohol.
So, Guinness has two primary breweries. It has its main line brewery, the St. James Gate in Dublin. And that's where they brew Guinness, Smithwick's, Harp, all the standard lovely Guinness beers that you know and love. All the mainline ones are out of St. James Gate. And wagering nothing but his mighty intellect, the wild Sanguine ventured forth into the unmapped whatever of Murder Hotel and proceeded to mop the floor with the pitiful remains of the other participants. Nice, Prospero. So they have their secondary brewery, which is their Open Gate Brewery, which is in America. It's actually located in Baltimore, Maryland. And that's where they'll do a lot of their experimental beers. And their experimental beers, most of the ones that I've had are absolutely fucking delicious. One of the best that I've had from them was they did a thin mint Guinness. So it was that lovely chocolatey, velvety Guinness with just a little bit more of that chocolate note to it. But then it was hit with just the perfect amount of mint to it as well. So it tasted like a Girl Scout Thin Mint cookie with a Guinness backbone. It was amazing. It was malty, chocolatey, and then just that right amount of mint. It was cracking a bottle. But they've also done another one that I've had and I absolutely love that I have a couple bottles remaining of, which is their old-fashioned inspired ale, which is an ale that is aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels with orange and cherry accents to it. Rather lovely. But they also have the only beer from the Guinness breweries that I cannot fucking stand, which is their Guinness American or Guinness Blonde. Because what they set out to do is they set out to make an American lager. And they absolutely fucking succeeded. They made a Guinness Bud Light. It was absolute piss water. I fucking hate that beer. There are other beers, like I said, really lovely. This old-fashioned inspired ale, delicious. The Guinness Thin Mint, oh my fucking god, I would beat someone to death for a barrel of that. But that American Blonde, absolute shit. And nice Prospero. They made an American lager, Prospero. Yeah, they're a stout house. But they do have other beers because they have Smithwick's, which is an absolutely fantastic Irish red. They have their Harp, which is Harp Lager. It is an Irish lager. Absolutely delicious. It's the American Blonde that was fucked up. Their other beers from Open Gate, I enjoy thus far. But that American Blonde, I was going, okay, I hate cheap American lagers. Let's see if this is one that did an American lager that was actually good. No, it was piss water. Absolute piss water. No redemption for that beer whatsoever. It was god-awful. And exactly, Prospero. That's why I was willing to give it a chance. I was willing to give it a go because I've had craft American lagers that are decent. They're not quite to the level of like a Asiatic lager, because I do really like Asiatic lagers. They're goddamn witchcraft because Asiatic lagers are pale as all hell, but they have a full flavor. Kirin tastes delicious. Sapporo tastes delicious. Asahi, oh good god, fuck yes. Tsingtao, amazing. There's one Chinese beer that I've been trying to find in the US that I have not been able to find, that I first had when I was in China, that was just simply known as snow beer. And it was amazing. Yes, that's what I mean by Asiatic lagers. The Japanese lagers, Kirin, Sapporo, Asahi, the Chinese lagers, Tsingtao, and snow beer, that variety. Then you can also toss in the, Tiger, Singha, and there's one other, is it Saigon 40, Saigon 45, something like that. But there's a bunch of Asiatic ones. There's good European lagers that I have absolutely no problem with. But there's decent craft American lagers. Most American lagers are just piss. They're piss of someone who had a beer at some point before pissing. But they're still piss.
Well, that doesn't sound too charitable to American beer.
No, to American lager. American beer is good. One of my favorite reds is an American red. Killian's Red is an American Irish red. It is absolutely delicious. Then Southern Tier, it's a craft brewery. Absolutely fantastic. And they're goddamn sorcerers with whatever the fuck they do. I don't know how the hell they do it, but Southern Tier consistently will come up with a interesting flavor for their beer So one of the ones that I saw was a creme brulee cream stout. And it tasted exactly like a fucking creme brulee with a nice malty backbone. Southern Tier does to beers what Kettle Brand chips do to potato chips. Because Kettle Brand, you will see flavors that you're going, this makes no goddamn sense. Korean barbecue potato chips. You will see that and you'll go, that doesn't make any sense. How the hell would you make a potato chip taste like Korean barbecue, which is a beef barbecue? Then you try the goddamn chip and you're going, son of a bitch! You'll see Carolina barbecue. And you'll think, oh, they're probably just doing Carolina barbecue sauce flavored chips. No. They're talking Carolina barbecue pork flavored chips. It's not just the sauce. You taste the fucking pork in the chip. I don't know what sort of demon they have in their factories that they've captured and have just devoted to the purpose of instilling whatever flavor they want into what they're telling them to do. But good God, it is fantastic.
Now we're dealing with demons? Oh, jeez.
It has to be some type of sorcery in order to get those flavors to work in what they're trying to stick them in, Adam.
Colby literally asked backwards about my priorities on chips, but I like a chip that has some structure to it.
Hold on.
Kettle Brand chips
Are you-
have structure.
Hold on.
Like, can they stand up to a canister or a corn
This-
chip? That's
this
the
is
level
the-
of structure I like.
This is a Canuck,
especially
so
if you get the
is
ruffles,
he talking
fuck
about
yes, they
chips? Or are you talking about fries?
He's actually talking about potato chips this time rather than fries.
Where the hell does that distinction come from? Unless I'm talking in relation to fish directly, chips is potato chips, not fries.
Well, I don't know how you guys do it in Kazakhstan, dude.
In
Try to one-up me,
Canada,
fucking guy.
unless it's related to fish,
Yeah,
chips is
continue to eat
potato
your
chips.
protein, you
Adam,
idiot.
you have to remember, like with most things, yes, Canada is part of the Commonwealth, but it kind of half-asses it.
That's due to a large amount of cultural osmosis from south of the border.
I would think they'd be one off
I
from
still
that,
find it
and
hilarious.
I would find it Australia to be, way off it. But the fuck out of here, dude! Come on, it's a simple
I
mistake.
still find it hilarious
Australia and
that-
New Zealand are so isolated that the imported culture hasn't had the opportunity really to have other cultures locally assimilate into it. Unlike
Also,
Canada.
if you ever really want to piss off a Canadian, bring up the fact that Canada wasn't its own country until the 80s.
Wait,
Whatever you say.
Did it piss you off?
That's the reason why he said whatever you say. Because he had this argument with me. He tried to justify his bullshit. But the thing is, the Crown didn't release it until the 80s.
Hold on. First off, why did it sound like you were coming up from downtown?
Because I went to wipe out my cast iron that I just splashed some vodka in to clean it.
Oh, well, don't do that. And also, well, first off, we lost Sora. And Eeyore, what happened to your icon, dude?
What do you mean? I've never had my icon on
Bullshit. You've had your
He's had an image, right?
trimmed smut on normally.
Yeah.
not on StreamYards.
Yes, you have.
No.
Yes.
No.
Because you
No.
had it on the day that I called you out on it. And
Hangouts,
then it
maybe.
disappeared.
Hangouts, maybe. Not StreamYard.
No, you've had it on StreamYard, dude.
Yeah.
Because you had it on when I called you out about it being trimmed smut.
I mean, I don't know about that, but I know at least you had some bit of an image. And hopefully,
he's trying to avoid being complete Canadian and is instead trying to be Thai West as he's beating the ball.
oh my goodness, hold on, Eeyore, are you trying to immigrate to America? These coming months, you're just gonna stay out here?
You heard how easy it is to jump the border? He's going to give it a go.
I ain't gonna jump no border, at least not illegally.
He's just going to overstay his welcome.
No. That counts as illegal.
Maybe.
Though they often tried to separate that out in the stats, unfortunately.
Didn't stop the people at Google and Twitter and Facebook.
Mm-hmm. And Tyrannus is right, because the U.S. doesn't have that kind of shaky, when did the Crown actually release us? No. We told them when they released us.
Yep. We wrote a declaration.
And yet the country truly wasn't internationally recognized until 8 years later, I believe.
Tell me again, 80-something.
You're talking about constitutional repatriation, not nationhood.
No, I'm talking about when you were actually...
No. That was constitutional repatriation, nothing else.
When you were actually separated from the Crown according to the Crown. That's what I'm talking about.
The moment that the Confederation Act got royal assent.
Nope.
Yes.
The time that Canada was actually separated was in the 80s, when the House of Parliament finally had the time and gave half a thought and went, Canada's been saying it's another country. Shall we allow it to be another country? Yes. Okay. Yeah, they can fuck off. Which was in the 80s.
Sanguine. Enough.
Like I said,
this is the most bullshit thing you are capable of saying.
Nope.
No.
It is.
And Tyrannus, I don't give a shit. You're already blocked from me on Discord. Fuck off.
What? Are you serious?
Fuck off.
Are you serious?
Fuck off.
Okay. No.
Like I said, it pisses off Canadians.
No, your bullshit pisses me off right now.
It's entirely historically accurate.
No, it is not. It is revisionism at best, bullshit at proper.
So, Donkey, when did the English Parliament assent that Canada was separate? When did that vote go through? When was that passed?
Invalid question. It
isn't.
Yes, it is.
Because when it comes to a sovereign power relinquishing its claim on a subordinate power, that is entirely the matter of
the
when
question
it
is false
separate.
by structure.
A devolved power is still part of it, unless you're going to claim that Scotland is no longer part of the UK.
It is an invalid question by structure.
No, it was a...
Because Parliament didn't have that power at the time.
Yes, it did.
The moment the Acts of Confederation, the first acts of the Canadian Parliament, went to receive royal assent is when Canada became functionally independent.
Functionally, not literally. Again, devolved power does not equal...
It was not devolved. We had our own everything.
At the tolerance of the sovereign power.
Nope. Part of the acts was Westminster couldn't touch our internal affairs.
Which a subordinate power declaring that a sovereign power can't touch it doesn't really fucking matter unless the sovereign power goes, whatever.
Which George V, I want to say. did say so by signing the acts.
He went, we'll deal with it later, which is
Nope,
why it had to be
nope,
dealt with
nope,
later.
nope. That's
Yes,
part of
yes,
Confederation.
Yes. Because it didn't completely go through until the 80, what was it, like 85, 87, something fucking vote? Might have been slightly earlier. I'll be charitable. 82. Vote that actually had it go through. And they went, yeah, they're separate. And
Sanguine.
Prospero is willing to give you 1931. So she's being far more charitable than
You
I.
can push that back to 1914 at least.
Fuck no.
Because one of the primary functions of an independent nation we did in 1914. Our declaration of war was separate from the UK.
Nah, that was, again, you had the ability to co-sign it effectively, which is what
Nope. It was our own
Yep.
act. It was our own act. I don't give a shit what
In your own parliament, which was only at the tolerance of the sovereign power.
Nope. Royal
Yes.
assent to the Articles of Confederation gave us independence. The only difference was that our written constitution was housed in Westminster at the time. That is the only difference. And I will add, the articles said it was not modifiable by Westminster. The only change that made was it was also not modifiable by the Canadian Parliament. Though a separate act, the one you are referring to in 1982, changed that part.
Let me pull up the exact date again because I pulled this up previously. Because, yeah, there's the time that Canada says, and then there's the time that the sovereign power actually said, which was 82. So, it is 82 that
George V's signature says otherwise. That is the sovereign. Be all, end all. That's how it works to today in both nations.
was not approved until 1982.
Wrong. Signed by the
Except-
sovereign.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
Approved 1982, proclaimed by Elizabeth II on April 17th, 1982, making Canada wholly independent. Wholly independent. The original statute that established the Canadian Confederation, which is the one that you're referring to, of 1867, the British North America Act, was contained within the 82 document, including amendments made by the British Parliament over the years and new materials resulting in negotiations between the federal and provincial powers. So there was a bit saying that they couldn't overturn it. Bullshit. There were changes to it throughout that entire period.
You added a bit there. Of course, bits and pieces were needed to be changed as new provinces were admitted or restructured, depending on whether or not it was adding territory or just redefining borders. Both have occurred in
The new
Canada.
materials resulted from negotiations between the federal and provincial governments between 1980 and 1982. The new constitution represented a compromise between the Canadian Prime Minister, Elliott Trudeau's vision of one Canada with two official languages, and the particular concerns of the provinces. It was in 1982 by Elizabeth II that this was finally done by parliamentary act, wholly making Canada an independent power. It was not wholly an independent power. It was wholly an independent power with the Constitution Act that was in 1982. When we're talking wholly independent, which is the only type of independence that actually fucking matters,
Okay, buddy.
1982.
Okay, buddy.
The last recourse.
Let's see how that works if you try it with almost every other nation that's had a muddy way towards what you would term as independent. Oh, wait, that's all of Europe, most of Asia, all of Africa.
Yeah.
90% of South America.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, not all of Africa. Ethiopia never
also,
was to be conquered.
Also, Ireland. Do you know when Ireland considers that it became free?
If you ask an Irishman, I guess they'd say the mid-20s.
No, because that was when they would cite the Easter Rebellion, followed by the Big Man's Rebellion, which was, of course, Collins leading that. Then Collins was able to force the crown to meet. He was then stabbed in the back by Eamon de Valera, because when he went to Eamon de Valera, asked if they thought that they could do anything more than what was being offered, what they had already forced the crown to assent to, which was that it would allow for a devolution of powers and for the opportunity to become free. And they fucking killed Michael Collins over this because Eamon de Valera was an absolute cunt. And after saying that, yes, that is the best that we can do, once Collins had signed the document in the name of the Provisional Irish Government, he then said that Collins had sold them down the river. They fucking murdered him over that shit because they didn't consider themselves free until the actual separation happened. Devolution of power does not mean actual separation. So in Ireland, they wouldn't say the mid-20s. Because they were even during World War II. This is one of the things that a lot of people
very staunchly neutral.
Kind of bullshit, because if you look at a lot of the things that people got pissed off at Ireland for during World War II, was they were rather sympathetic to the Nazis because they viewed it as a way of completely breaking from the English. If the English fell to the Nazis, they were seeking freedom in that resulting chaos. Because, again, they did not consider themselves free. And if you do the same with other nations, they also will admit that, yeah, it was once all claim from the sovereign nation was revoked that we became wholly independent. Canada's the odd man out. Yep, the Irish were bloody-mindedly petty in World War II, which is, again, one of the reasons why a lot of people have problems with the Irish as distinct from the North Irish.
Personally, I don't see a problem with a nation that considered itself independent by that point. And they did. They had the ability to declare war and neutrality at that time, enforcing that neutrality quite heavy-handedly. And once they saw the way the wind was blowing, they actually did sort of warm up, though never officially joined.
Hey,
Again,
there's a lot of Irish influence in the Civil War as well.
Yep. And again, if you thought yourself completely free, why would you be looking at an enemy nation as an opportunity to become free?
Liberation of Northern Ireland.
Although I will
That was
say-
not the entire reason that they were seeking that, because they sought it for Ireland. They also wanted it in Northern Ireland, and in Northern Ireland, they're still claiming it, which is why you have Sinn Féin and the PIRA and the NRA, and there's 3 other major factions or splinters of the former IRA. There was the RRIA, and then there was the P, the A, the N, and the other RRIA, because there's the Republican Irish. It's the Irish Republican Army. Then there was the. I'm trying to remember the first R for the RR.
Typically, it would be real
IRA.
IRA.
That was the secondary form of it. Actually, is the one that was the I, or was the RIRA. There was another one.
Then off
that
of
was
a guess, revolutionary would be my second.
I think
pick.
that was the Revolutionary. Yeah, I think it was Revolutionary Irish Republican Army. Then it was the real Irish Republican Army, and then there was, like I said, a
Yeah.
handful of others that splintered off as well. But yeah,
Which is a little natural of a single issue political movement.
well, it's really natural for an insurgent movement. Which they did go complete fucking terrorist bullshit. And they did shit that Michael Collins, in his endeavors, which were fairly bloody, he never would have co-signed on.
Yes, if I remember Collins, if I remember the person right, he only targeted British noblemen and the British forces. He didn't target civilians.
He kept it so that it was very tightly grouped, where it was anyone that worked in the Dublin Castle, they were fair game. The people that were backing the Dublin Castle on official basis were fair game. Civilians weren't. The soldiers were. The police that were aligned with the castle were. Anyone that was not, don't touch them. Which, like I said, that's fairly bloody. That's fairly ruthless. It was effective, but it was nothing near the nail bombs to schools.
Never thought it got that bad. All I thought the IRA did was mostly car bombings.
One of the major events was a nail bomb at a school. The IRA, or the main body of the IRA at the time, then tried to say that they were completely divorced from it. And they tried to turn over people that were, or they tried to not really turn over, but provide some information on it. And yeah, it was one of the people that was fairly well placed prior to this incident was the one that was responsible. So it then became a question of how much did they know and how much of their reaction was just, this makes us look really fucking bad after the fact. And
Gotta play
you had
politics.
the Mountbatten assassination, you had the killing of priests, you had a lot of horrendous shit that was spilling out everywhere. Yeah, like I said, one of the major events, if I remember correctly, was a nail bomb at a school. Which, the only reason that you would send a nail bomb to a school is to kill kids. It was fucked up. But shall we go into more recent news now that I've bludgeoned Donkey for a while?
Fuck you.
That was rather weak, but yeah.
You
And I just looked it up, and one of the ones that was. Let me quickly make sure that this is the one that I'm thinking. Or is that the later one? Is this the one that was the Irish one, or is this the one that was inspired by the Irish but was actually a English native? Oh no, this one was the race war one. Okay, never mind. That wasn't the one that I was thinking of. There have been a couple nail bombs at schools. The David Copeland was one of the real big ones. But yeah, a lot of fucked up shit happened when it came to that. But as for other news, there's, of course, the continued finding of documents that the search is already done. There's no more documents. There's more documents. Shit. Okay, the search is done. There's no more. There's more documents. God damn it. From the Bidens, which is getting progressively more interesting, including the recent intel that came out from it, where that was the house that Hunter Biden was saying that he lived in while he was part of all these different boards, while he was in and out of rehab, while he was doing all his shady shit, while he had a bunch of prostitutes that he was banging, while he had a bunch of parties that were going on at the house, while he had... Yeah, there was ridiculous amount of security issues when it came to the documents that weren't kept behind lock and key, that weren't being dealt with properly, while he was saying that he respects documents, that he respects how they should be treated, that he's been doing everything right. Yeah, turns out that that was a load of happy horse shit. You guys have heard about that shit, right?
The documents were with his Corvette locked in a garage, so they were perfectly safe.
Oh, they were those. Then there were the ones that were in his house's office.
Right.
Just on the shelves. No lock, no key. Just sitting.
He needed bookends.
Just sitting on his shelves out in the open. Then there were the ones that were in the closet. Then there were the ones that were in the closet of his office at the foundation. And I think there's at least one more cache that they found fairly recently that they were also talking about. I can't remember where that one was. I think that one was also in the office. They found more documents in there.
Wow.
So far, out of all these document things, I feel that possibly people knew about these ahead of time, wanted to gauge how good Biden's first 2 years were. If they went good, we wouldn't be hearing this. If they went bad, well, we now know what timeline we're on.
Oh, I know that they knew about this beforehand because it was stated that they knew about this beforehand. They've said that they knew about this for a while.
It was squelched because of the midterms.
It was squelched because of midterms, and at the same time that they knew about this shit, they changed the regulations and then went after Trump for having his documents stored in the proper fashion, that he had even confirmed with them that all the documents that he had were the documents that he said that he had when he confirmed with the appropriate bodies, that all the documents that he had, that he said that he had when he referred to the, or talked to the appropriate bodies, and was storing them in the manner that the appropriate bodies told him to store them. And he had behind lock and key in the proper method, they were all documents that he had before leaving office declassified, so that he had no classified information, because the president has always had the ability to unilaterally declassify like that.
Right.
So he had declassified documents that were all cataloged, that had a visitor list to his areas where they were kept, that they were still behind lock and key, they were still behind all the measures that he was told to put in place, that they knew he had put in place because he had consulted them as he put them in place. But that was a horrible breach of security and absolutely ridiculous.
Well,
if I remember the nature of Trump's stash at the Mar-a-Lago, it was within a safe, in a closet. The closet had a camera, and the closet also had a lock on the door.
Yep.
Well, let us also not forget that Biden was vice president at the time. He had no permission to take classified documents. He had them there illegally the whole time.
That was what I was just about to bring up. That
Trump
did all of this, and they went after him. Meanwhile, you look at Biden. Did Biden have unilateral ability to declassify? No. Were these documents ever declassified? No. Did Biden have these documents through normal means, i.e., having received them as just the normal shit? No. Did he store them in a way that was appropriate for the documents? No. Did he consult the governing bodies on how these documents should be stored? No. Did he give a full list of all the documents that he had taken to the appropriate government bodies that are meant to keep track of these? No. Did he have the documents properly stored, as I already said? No. Did he have anyone who would have been a security risk in the areas where these documents were? Well, his son Hunter, who said that he lived at the same house that a good chunk of these documents have been found, was at the time whoring around, inviting prostitutes over to the house, was doing a hell of a lot of shady shit, including drugs, having drug dealers over to the house, having parties over at the house, having everything that you could do in order to violate the you keep this shit safe, you keep this shit secret. He did.
Well, let's look at the hypocrisy going here. Any other person but Biden would be imprisoned by now for this. Especially if Trump was only vice president and this was found, he would have been gone to jail for so many reasons. I mean, we're not the least of which would be treason.
Yep, and hell, that wouldn't be sent to prison. The punishment for treason's not prison time.
Oh no, they would have killed his ass. Strung him.
Forgive me for my lack of knowledge of U.S. law in that matter, but treason is one or the other typically. Life without parole or to the firing line.
Treason is almost entirely.
Oh yeah, but I'm aware that
short rope, long drop.
Right.
If I remember right, the last American convicted of treason, however, served life in prison. A Japanese American who radioed a few things off to Tokyo.
He wasn't the last one.
But he did serve life rather than the death penalty.
I think he served that.
High treason is separate from normal treason.
Yeah, and I think he served that because they were also pumping him for information.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you look at later examples, you have the various Russian spies that were caught. And yeah. Long drop, short rope.
Yeah, let's not get away from the conversation, which is the fact that he had these documents
entirely legal.
And it's only out as far as classification is declassification is concerned is if Obama did it during that time, but can't prove that either way.
And there was no indication that it was ever done.
Well, you could prove that either way because the documents have to be enumerated when they're declassified. So if he was going to say, well, these documents were declassified, it would just be a matter of, okay, looking
to
the
the
declassification list,
Obama-era archives.
this one is not on that.
Well,
And yeah, a government official doing this would be considered high treason.
Yeah, the way that I see it, this is being done, and this whole thing is being uncovered for one of very few possibilities, if not maybe one or two of them overlapping. That would be to find a way to get back at Trump, to get rid of Biden because of his low approval, or to hide something else that's going on that's being done by the deep state, but they're throwing Biden under the bus. You know,
Or both.
Yeah, that's why I said
are likely factors.
Yeah, that like I said, that's why it could be one or more at the same time.
Yep.
You know, you've got a huge. I mean, this any other president, this would be the scandal of the decade or century.
Yep. Just
Yes.
like for any other election, it would have been unbelievably what the fuck. It should have been bigger than Watergate.
No,
Government
it's going to be
bodies
bigger
were-
than Watergate. Just
No.
a couple days after the GOP convention.
I'm saying that the shit that happened in 2016 should have been bigger than Watergate.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is a greater offense than just an impeachment. But the thing is,
Yep.
since the Dems hold the Senate, that impeachment will never go. It might be done in the House, but it'll never pass through the Senate.
They might actually.
You
if
think so?
if they think that Biden's enough of a poison pill,
How could they not see him as one? The guy has the
They're
lowest
Democrats.
approval. That's true, but the guy has got the lowest approval rating I have seen in my entire almost 50 years. I mean, I was just like a kid when Carter was president, but I have never seen a president more hated than this guy.
yeah, but you have to remember the only people that have a lower approval rating than he does are the people who would then be looking at him going, is he a poison pill?
Yeah, like his constituents, of course.
Because Pelosi doesn't have a high approval rating. Schumer doesn't have a high approval rating.
I would love to know how these people kept getting re-voted in if they've got such shitty numbers. Is it because of the districts that they're from?
It's the district's name recognition and apathy of voters.
It's pathetic.
Because what happens is that voters, a large number of voters, they vote for names that they recognize,
Right.
which is why getting your name out there is such a big thing. You're bumping your microphone, Adam, or moving it. Yeah. So name recognition is a huge thing because people will vote for a name that they recognize. So that's one tier of voting stupidity. Then second tier of voting stupidity, they vote for the letter that appears next to the name, not the name.
Right.
So that's the secondary tier of stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
The tertiary tier of stupidity is you vote for this person because you voted for them last time.
Well, that would explain my parents. My parents actually voted. They voted blue. It really doesn't. They don't care who it was, as long as it wasn't Trump.
Yep.
You know.
And that's the vote blue no matter who, is they don't vote for the person. They vote for that little letter next to their name.
And that's really shameful too.
Yep.
We've
like
just fallen so sorry. We've just fallen as a, I guess you could say a not really a building block, but like the cornerstone of a free republic.
Yeah. The cornerstone of free and fair elections is an educated population. And I don't mean educated population as you need as many people to have gone to college as possible. No. That's not the sort of educated population that we're
Especially
talking
with
You wouldn't even go as far as literate.
Well,
No, I would say literate is a necessary component.
Oh, for God's sake.
did he fall asleep?
He's harassing it, so I'm just going to do that. I don't think that was him actually falling asleep. But it's I would say literate is a necessary condition, because if you don't know what the funny squiggles on the page mean, the chance of you voting for the person that you mean to vote for, massively reduced.
Right.
Well, I'm just pointing out literate would be around the area of minimum requirements to be called educated, which,
Well,
by the modern definition, at least the one I understand, is literate, have a high school diploma, or are a skilled tradesman, one or the other, for that
it's
secondary
a
requirement.
necessary but insufficient criteria.
Well,
So-
Plus, schools these days, they're being told not to hold anybody back. Just graduate them.
Yep, which
You know,
that's a big problem.
And you have colleges that are refusing to teach algebra because these college students don't know it. And that's basic math in high school.
Yep. But when I'm saying that you need an educated voting population, what I mean is that you need a voting population that is not only just able to read the fucking ballot, big important thing. If you can't read it, you can't vote for who you mean to vote for.
Right.
With any sort of real consistency. Then you need to know the people that are on that ballot and what their stances are. And this is an important part, because I don't want people to know what their opponent says their stances are. I want them to know what they say their stances are. So, what does the Democrat say the Democrats' stances are? What does the Republican say the Republicans' stances are? And then be able to look at which one of those lines up more with you.
Well, this is why, I actually just had the crazy idea of remove the letters and look at the candidates based on their views.
Yep.
It's almost like those baking competitions or those cooking competitions where they judge them blind. They're tasting something. They don't know who did it, but if they like that the most, they're going to go for what they want the best.
Yep.
So it sounds like you're advocating, instead of put even the name there, put a basic nonpartisan description of their platforms on the ballot.
See, I don't trust anyone to write that basic
No, I don't either.
If an ideal world, yes, I would want people voting entirely based on
their views.
What their views are.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be my ideal setup.
But we don't live in that world.
We don't live in that world.
Not even
so
close.
What is sufficient to me is, I hate the idea that we got rid of the poll test entirely because, it was racist. Yes, the versions of poll tests that we were dealing with were racist. Absolutely. That is not something that can really be questioned. Right. But here's the thing. It wasn't just racist against black people, because the races as conceived at the time weren't black and white. No. Because you had the Irish were separated out from white. You had the Gypsies were separated out from white. You had Italians were separated out from white. And do you know what other groups? Poll tests were designed to prevent voting? Irish, Gypsies, Italians.
How convenient.
And there's a bunch of other groups that they were also designed to keep people from voting. The poll test was racist in the conception of race at the time. Now it would be considered classist with how we conceive of races, because it was trying to prevent black people as well as white people, as well as various other minority groups. So we would consider it classist now. But at the time, that was a racist test. So getting rid of those racist tests absolutely makes sense.
Well, one of the biggest... Go ahead.
The problem that I have with that is it's much the same issue that we had when it came to asylums were doing horrendous things. when
Here
it
we
came
go.
to how they dealt with the people living in the insane asylums. They were sticking ice picks up people's noses. They were scrambling people's brains. They were doing electroconvulsive therapy. They were doing all kinds of messed up shit. And then there was just things that had absolutely no utility, had absolutely nothing that was supposed to be done. Just people getting beaten, people getting horrendously abused because we had a bunch of people that shouldn't have actually been working there, but the staffing fell, the workload increased, staffing got burnt out, they started lowering standards for staffing, so you got lower quality staffing, so then you ended up getting people that weren't there to actually help people, they were there because it was a power trip, and then they started
Sanguine, you're spurging again.
So the better solution would have been to solve the problem that was there rather than to go, we need to get rid of asylums entirely. The problem with the poll test should have been, we need to come up with a valid poll test and completely get rid of all the invalid poll tests. And I think a valid poll test would be for every section that the person wants to vote on. Here's the people, or here's the candidates for this. Here's policies. Order them in the right, or assign them to the right candidate. That isn't a racist poll test, but that's making sure that the person actually understands what each candidate's advocating for. And that would be one way of doing it. It's not ideal, but that's one way that it could be done. Go ahead.
I would argue that the U.S. almost has a poll test ready to go. The immigrant civics test. Use that.
To a certain degree. Yeah. But you were saying, Moon?
Oh, I was just going to say that one of the problems, one of the very many problems that I have is that our voter turnout is very poor in the United States. So the people that are being elected, and I say that with air quotes, people that are being selected and elected in there, they only represent a very small percentage of the American citizens because so few turn out to vote. Mm-hmm. And then you have the small percentage of people that are making the decisions for the vast majority. And for whatever reason, maybe some people don't want to vote, some people don't feel like it, some people feel like their vote's not going to matter, all that kind of crap. It's an obligation. It's a right that we have as a country, as citizens, to select the person that we feel should be in there. But people just don't do it. It should be, not that I'm trying to be an advocate for the North Korean system of you have to vote or else, but a lot of people don't have the right to bitch about stuff if they don't go and vote. They have effectively removed themselves from the equation.
I think socially that's something that we should push for. Not
require, but
not in any other extent. But yeah, if you know that your friend didn't go vote and you hear them bitching and moaning that the current person is doing such a shit job, your response should be, you had your fucking chance. You decided not to take it.
Yeah.
Shut up.
You have no say in this. Not to vote, then you have no right to complain about the people in charge.
Yeah, it should just be a common thing that people do socially. You didn't want to weigh in on this? You don't get to bitch and moan. Kind of like when you have a group of friends and you're trying to decide what you want to eat, and one person just keeps on saying, I'm fine with anything, I'm fine with anything, I'm fine with anything, and then the rest of you decide what you want to eat, and they go, oh, we're eating that? You had your chance.
Yes.
Shut up. You're
Yeah.
eating this.
And you have to think about all of the social aspects of being able to vote. You know, I mean, women, they fought hard to be able to vote. Minorities, they fought hard to be able to vote.
Well, women, I will add a slight caveat to what you just said.
Right.
Because women didn't really fight hard to be able to vote. They fought extremely hard to be able to vote without having to sign up for the draft, without having to sign up for any of the other shit that was mandatory
I will
for
grant
men
that,
to do
yes.
at the time.
Yeah,
Because
I'll grant that.
if they had been willing to sign up for the draft, not to fight on the front lines, but that they could be drafted and sent as support
Right.
staffing, they would have had the vote earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If they had been willing to be forced into bucket brigades, which were still a thing in certain areas,
Right.
they would have been given the right to vote earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to have to sign up for selective service. They didn't want to have to sign up for all the other shit that was needed to earn the privilege to vote, because that was the thing. It wasn't necessarily a right to vote originally.
It's a privilege.
It was a privilege that was matched with a responsibility.
Right.
So, in order to have the privilege to vote, you needed to meet certain requirements, and you needed to follow through on your responsibilities. The responsibilities were you had to be eligible to be drafted.
Right.
That was a responsibility. A requirement very early on was that you had to have some type of buy-in. And the buy-in that was recognized at the time was land ownership. Because if you owned land, you can't pick up that land and go someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
So you care about what happens where your land is. So you had to buy in, and then you had to be willing to defend it, or be willing to be forced to defend it. And that gave you the privilege of voting. So it was landowners and people that were eligible for the draft. Then the land ownership went away, but the draft remained, and that remained until women got the right to vote, at which point it just became that it was a requirement for men that if you get to the age of majority, you have to sign up for selective service. If you're a woman, you just get to vote.
Right.
And this also shows that I've actually been doing my research. Selective Service Act actually requires everyone, when they are a citizen, between the age of 18 and 26 to sign up for it.
Yep.
This applies because an immigrant can come in at 17 or 18 and not be a citizen until they're 23, but the moment they take that oath, they're on selective service.
Yep.
Yep. Heck, I remember getting my selective service card when I turned 18. Bam, you had to sign up for that immediately.
Yep.
So it's like, hey, no problem. I carried that thing with me everywhere.
You had to sign up for selective service, and not only did you have to sign up for selective service, but still going on today, to do fucking anything as a guy in that age range, they will ask, have you signed up for selective service? When I went to college, have you signed up for selective service? Yes. Where's the evidence? Here. Okay. Welcome to our school.
You know, this is gonna seem kind of silly, and I do apologize for it, but there was something from that movie Starship Troopers, and probably from the story. I didn't read the full book, but when they said like service guarantees citizenship, and citizens get to vote.
Yep.
You know, that it might, so to some people might seem a little fascist or fascistic, but it
Quite
does.
frankly, non-birthright citizenship is a superior method.
Yep. The only reason that birthright citizenship became a thing in the United States, or the way that we currently do birthright citizenship in the United States, the only reason it happened was because of holdouts in the South after the Civil War.
Right.
because there were a bunch of people that were trying to make it so that newly freed slaves and the children of newly freed slaves would not earn the right to vote. Because the way that it was in order to be a citizen of the United States, you had to test to become a citizen of the United States after immigration, or you had to be born to a citizen. So either your father or your mother had to be a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had a bunch of people that were trying to prevent newly freed slaves from becoming citizens. Because we didn't classify them as citizens when they were property. So any of their children aren't children of citizens. Any of their children's children aren't children of citizens. They would have to become naturalized citizens. In order to nip this in the bud, people decided that, no, we'll just make it that if you were born in America. What should have been the case is that we'll make it that if you're born in America from this time to these groups, you're an American citizen. If it is anyone outside of that, then your two methods of citizenship are you're the child of a citizen, at least one citizen, or you naturalize.
Right. And the thing is, I can respect that you must be a citizen to vote, but you have to be able to earn that citizenship apart from, hey, look, I was born in this country, I'm a citizen. Well, thing is, with that citizenship comes a lot of responsibility. And so many people take that for granted. And they just completely waste the ability to use that for good or for their own, to express their own views. And that can pertain to anything, voting, that can pertain to social issues, that can pertain to any number of different opinions that they might have. But they're squandering it. And they're wasting their time using that right to vote on a letter next to somebody's name, not the platform that they're standing on. That's like, just to circle back to the other conversation piece we were having. It's all related. It's all interconnected. And it's just going to waste when they quote unquote vote in these potatoes. And
largely because the last three generations that have entered the voting age, the earliest Zoomers have, and Gen Alpha, outside of modern shit, have not grown up with any major value in the citizenship. It's just been there.
Yeah.
They know not what they have earned, what they have been blessed with.
That is
not
true.
earned what they have been gifted.
Yeah, and they, like I said, they just take it for granted. It's like I'll vote for whoever gets me the most free shit.
And this is why in the countries that still practice mandatory civil service and non-birthright citizenship, you see much higher civic participation.
Right.
I'm not saying America has to go all that way. There's no real reason to it. America is a little bit of a paradise.
Despite everything, we are still the most free country, so to speak. But those are being eroded away. If the powers that be get their way, those freedoms will be gone, and it won't take long to get rid of them either.
Yep.
Fortunately, one pillar of the old esoteric American world is still fully maintained, and I wish the other one still existed, which was the Supreme Court and the Senate.
Yeah.
The Senate is in its modern form, and I understand 17th, if I remember correctly, amendment, or was it one of the other ones, late teens? bastardized the Senate, in my opinion.
Well, there have been a lot of things that have fucked over the Senate, and most of them have been the Senate's doing.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that pisses me off is
I
the one
want
that you're
to
referring
answer Tyranius's
where-
statement correctly. I'm over the age for selective service, so when I become a citizen, I don't have to.
But the thing I think you're referring to is when it went from the Senate used to, for those who don't know, it used
Appointed
to
by state's legislature.
the Senate was appointed by state's legislature. So what you did was you voted for your state's legislature. They would then nominate who they wanted, and they would be put forward as the senator, which meant that you would really pay attention to your legislature, your state legislature. Then your representative would be done much how we do it now. Which meant that you had one that you directly elected, one that you indirectly elected, but that indirect election made you really worry about who was at the low levels of government in your area. Because if you wanted to make sure that you had a good senator, you had to make sure that you had good fucking legislature at the state level. Getting rid of that fucked it up to a large degree. I absolutely agree with that.
Well, voting with your emotions is the worst way to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that 50% or so of Americans that do vote, I would assume a good half of those are either A, what's the letter after the name, or B, just on pure emotion.
Or, like I said, I think a large number of people that vote are, I voted for them last time. And there's the sunk cost fallacy when it comes to that. Also, just people not wanting to admit that they're wrong. So, if you voted for this person 10 times before, because you're now going into your 40s.
Imagine keeping a hold of a representative for 10 terms.
Yep. But you've voted for the same person time and again ever since you turned 18, and they come up for election again. You kind of have this buy-in with them. And you feel like, well, if I vote for someone else, then that would be me saying that I've been wrong this entire time.
I guess my biggest issue with politicians is that all the false promises, all of the I'll fight for you, I'll fight for you, I'll fight for you. You get them into office, and then all of a sudden their promises go bye-bye, and then the only thing, just a second, the only thing they worry about is getting reelected.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that matters to these people, is keeping their job. And if that means that they have to shit on the people they apparently represent, they're going to do it.
Yep. Which is why I think everyone needs to start voting in what I call the shit or get off the pot method. Where you have someone who says, vote for me, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. If you like
fail to do half of X, Y, and Z, get lost.
If you like what they're saying as their X, Y, Z, vote for them. If they don't do a goddamn thing about it, never give them your vote again.
Well, yeah, it's
if
like
they get some of it done, but not all of it, then see if there's someone who you think will do a better job, or vote for that person again. If they've made a good faith effort to do all of it, then give them your vote again. That should be the three categories.
Yeah.
They haven't done a goddamn thing, fuck them. They've done some of it, but not quite enough. Let me see who their competitors are. Or they've done everything, they're doing amazing. As long as they have, or they've worked towards doing everything. If they haven't achieved it, then yes, let's hear what you're going to be doing this go. and then vote for you again. If they've completed everything that they said that they were setting out to do, and they're going for a second term, I also think that everyone should be looking at them going, why?
Right. And the biggest challenge for being able to come through on your promises is going to be that you're going to have to get enough agreement from, regardless of who is on whichever side. You're going to have to get those people to agree with what you would like to put through, and there has to be a majority of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, though, there are going to be people that are going to try to fulfill promises, yet they're going to be up against opposition.
Yep. And that's why I've said if they've made a good faith effort, absolutely.
Right.
Vote for them again.
Yes.
If they haven't, that's when it's fuck them. And if they've accomplished everything that they said, if they accomplished their XYZ, why are you running now? That should be a question that is always asked. And it shouldn't just be asked of politicians. I've said that this should be asked of any group that says that it's started up for a specific reason.
Yeah.
And this is a big problem with modern politics. We have a shit ton of vestigial groups that are trying to find any reason why they aren't vestigial.
Yeah, they're basically free riding.
They're free riding, and they're constantly trying to find work. The most frightening thing imaginable is someone trying to find work.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you got to think about how much is being wasted on committees, on ridiculous research, on unnecessary actions, unnecessary teams, looking into stuff that doesn't need to be looked into. If there was the one thing that I would love to see is a huge independent internal audit.
Mm-hmm.
But that will never happen because they're going to uncover so much shit that's going to completely blackball a lot of politicians.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just that, but like I said, it's a bunch of different groups have had this. They've continued living past the point that they should have.
Yes.
And now they're just trying to justify their existence and find work to justify their existence.
Mm-hmm.
One that I'm willing to bet all of us can very easily agree needed to be a thing, and it was good that it was a thing, was the civil rights movement. When it first started up, absolutely horrendous shit was happening. People were being treated inhumanly. Shit needed to change.
Right.
There is not the same need of the civil rights movement now as there was in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Through 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s.
Yeah, you had people that were incredibly racist.
Yep. And oh, God.
Oh, I was just say, you passed this legislation, or you passed these requirements for employers. That was put in back in the 60s, I believe, or 70s.
There were several civil rights acts. The majority of them were passed in the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, 60s, 70s, and then there's a couple late add-ons in the 80s.
Yeah, so you get these very well established laws against any kind of racism or any kind of discrimination, etc. And then now people are trying to reinvent this crap in the form of in the form of chief diversity officers.
Mm-hmm.
You already have all of the stuff that will represent every race, creed, color, whatever. You don't need redundancies.
Yep.
And that can also tie into the government.
Yep. And that's exactly where I was taking it, that we have groups like the civil rights movement, where after they accomplished what they set out to do, they should have all but died out. And I say all but died out because what should happen with a group like that is it should be reduced to watchdog staffing.
Right. Exactly.
And what I mean by watchdog staffing is you reduce to the point where you have enough people still there that they're looking and making sure that there aren't any backslides.
Mhm.
And you have enough people that if they catch a backslide, they're able to sound the alarm and cycle everything back up.
Yes.
That's watchdog status. That's what we've had with a bunch of different groups. Like, you don't constantly hear about First Amendment groups until First Amendment rights start being infringed, and then all hands on deck.
Oh yeah,
But-
I mean, there's any number of groups out there that would love to tear apart the First Amendment.
Yep. But-
Completely let it just crumble beneath their feet.
Yep.
If I
but-
recall correctly, a California congresswoman over in Davos actually said, yes, they want to do that.
Mhm.
Yep. But
That
yeah,
will.
if
Go ahead.
there's, or when there's times, though, that it is not directly under threat, those groups, they shrink. They shrink massively. And they become that watchdog status of, they look and they go, okay, is the First Amendment being challenged? No? Okay, we don't need to sound the alarm. Yes? Sound the alarm. Cycle back up. And then we cycle back up.
Yeah, and it's been said several times by several different people. It is the First Amendment for a reason, because that is the foundation of all of our freedoms right there. You have the right to do this. You have the right to this, to this, to this, to this. You have several different things that are extremely important that are taken care of right there in that First Amendment. That
The
is
first,
uninfringible. As far as I'm concerned, you cannot infringe upon that at all, regardless of what people in Congress say.
yeah, the First Amendment is the primordial right, to my mind.
Yes.
And the Second Amendment is the primordial shield.
Oh, absolutely. I could not agree more.
Because with the First Amendment, you have the ability to argue for any other rights and to argue and try to convince people for all the other amendments.
Right. Yeah, and then the second one just says, look, if we have to, we will take up arms to protect that First Amendment.
Yeah. It's, if you try to suppress my primordial right, then I'm going to respond. And I'm going to respond with the only recourse, because that's the thing. When silence is, or when arguments are quashed, when the ability to speak is crushed, the only recourse anyone has is violence.
Right.
When you aren't allowed to talk it out, well, that gets rid of all peaceful options. The only thing that's left is either you suppress me and are able to do so to the point where I can't do a goddamn thing,
Mhm.
or I'm able to fight you off to the point where I'm good to go again.
Yeah. And they're... Go ahead, man.
To add to that, and this actually gets on to a point I've been thinking of, the third is nearly as important as the first two. Though, due to its wording, I feel it's become dated. The third, in my view, exists so the second cannot be molested or intimidated against.
Mm-hmm.
The third being the government can't, without compensation, I believe, house soldiers on your land.
Yeah, it's the government has no right to demand quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's an important one, because that does mean that they can't just go, well, in order to maintain power, every house has at least 2
Armed guards
police
on the
officers.
property.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I've read the Bill of Rights several times over the course of my life, and the founding fathers, they knew what the hell they were doing.
Yep.
Because they came from a system of oppression. And they're like, screw this. We're going to make sure that we have an airtight, list of things that we have the right to as citizens of this new burgeoning young country.
Yep.
And 220 years later, all of a sudden it's like, well, what's next? I'm sorry, I meant 250 years later. Sorry, but it's like now we're having people that are using subterfuge to get around these, to punish people, and then at the same time use their own constituents to like these people, or kind of how do we use a little get around? Like, oh, you've offended me. I'm offended, and that means that the First Amendment, freedom of speech, needs to be tossed out because we're so offended. You know, the whole concept of I'm just a gigantic pussy because my feelings get hurt so easily that this First Amendment part needs to go. I'm like, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, be offended because we have the right to say whatever the hell we want. You know, nobody goes after you when you say shit that would offend us. You want to know why? Because we have thicker skin than you. We don't care that you say that kind of crap. But the second that we poke your little, what is that? What is it? Cheesecloth that's really, really easily perforated. The second that we poke you in your little cheesecloth skin, oh my God! All of a sudden,
or tissue paper works as well.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the underlying foundation of the Constitution just needs to go.
Yep. And it's something that has been done repeatedly. Like the thing that pisses me off is the number of times that I've heard, well, the KKK is the militant arm of the right wing. Well, most people, when they're saying the right wing, they're saying Republicans. The Republicans killed the KKK twice.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that a lot of people don't realize is that it's not the Republicans who formed the KKK.
It's not the Republicans that formed the KKK. It is the Republicans that got rid of the KKK twice because we're on the third iteration of the KKK.
Yeah. It just cracks me up. People are so ignorant.
Yep.
They are just completely off base with everything.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden it's like if you have this kind of wrong belief, oh, you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
Or you got this lovely little organization called Antifa, which is anti-fascistic in its beliefs, yet they act like the very fascists that they are supposedly against.
Yep. And this is one thing that drives me crazy. There's something that I call defined virtue.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely hate defined virtue. So defined virtue is when you give something a really good sounding name. So we're the anti-fascists. You're against fascists, right? Well, it doesn't matter if you define yourself as anti-fascist if you then act fascistically. It doesn't matter if you define yourself as the pro all things good party if as part of your all things good party you have the platform of we go out and we stab babies on the weekend. You might have defined yourself as the all things good, but stabbing babies is not good. Your actions give the lie to what you say. Yeah. Your defined good doesn't fucking matter. What matters is your apparent good, your active good, your, I'm not sure how else to phrase it at the moment, but it's, your actions aren't good because you're good. Your actions are good, therefore you're good. You need to get that order correct. Because if you think that your actions are good because you're good, doesn't matter what your fucking actions are, you've already defined them as good. Whereas if you have to look at every single one of your actions and you have to decide, is this a good action? Because if it isn't, and I'm doing something evil, then I'm being evil. If it is, and I'm doing something good, then I'm being good. That is a far more important thing to think about, which is why one of the phrases, it's from the Bible, everyone quotes it, love thy neighbor as if they were yourself. Or love thy neighbor as you love yourself. There's a couple of different phrasings for it, depending on the translation. I hate that phrase because I don't want that to happen. What I really want to have happen is I want people to judge themselves as they judge their neighbor.
Well, it's also like the Emperor's new clothes are the same as the old clothes, but they're masked in new clothes. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? I can't see them, but supposedly they're there.
Yep.
But the new ones are exactly the same. You know, it's the paradox in and of itself of, hey, look, I've got this. They're not any different than the older ones, but we want you to believe that they are.
Yep. And the reason why I say that what I really want people to do is to judge themselves as they judge their neighbor is because there's one of three reactions that someone can have if they truly enact that. So if they've been judging themselves less harshly than they've been judging everyone around them, then this branches into two different paths. They can realize, holy shit, I've been an asshole. And they can revise how they judge other people and then revise how they judge themselves by copying that over to themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can realize, holy shit, I have not been living up to what I should be. In which case, they will bring their actions up to meet where they were. Both of these are good.
The thing is,
either way is good to me.
You'll have to. This is going to need a whole. I mean, to turn this whole thing around, you're going to need a shitload of re-education.
Yep.
But you're never going to get that because of the way people are thinking.
Well, you need actual education, not so much re-education. Re-education has that negative connotation of we're going to strap you to a chair, tape your eyelids open, and
well, it's almost like people
give you LSD.
People need to have their brains bleached of all the bullshit and then learn what is supposed to be learned, not what opinion is forced into your mind.
Yep.
Because that's all our schools have become, our indoctrination stations. You know, go to any of these woke colleges and look at their curriculums. And you're going to see that there's nothing there that is worth graduating somebody with an opinion to take out into the world.
Yeah, there's a handful of things that you do need a college education for. If you aren't going for those things, don't go for a college education like that. There's better options. Go for an associate's degree and then a trade school. Works far better. But if you're trying to become a surgeon, you're going to need to go to medical school.
Yeah, I've got a brother who he didn't go to a single day of college. But he went into a trade and he became a lineman. He's making almost $200,000 a year.
Yep.
Not a single day of college. Just a high school diploma, and he's making more money than anybody else in my family.
Yep. But yeah, when it comes to judging yourself by the same guides that you judge others, so that's one option. You've been judging yourself less harshly than you've been judging everyone around you.
Yeah. You know,
either reevaluate your guidelines that you've been judging, reevaluate your standards, or you end up holding yourself to those standards and you improve yourself.
Yeah, like Tyrannus in chat says, I am my own worst critic. I hold myself to a moral code that I berate myself if I break a single tenet.
Yep. That's going to be my third group, because the second group is you find out that you've already been doing this.
Right.
That you have one standard that you've been holding yourself to and you've been holding other people to.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you already do that, fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah.
The other thing that you might notice is that you've been holding yourself to a much higher standard. Which, then either what you do is you raise your standard of other people, which has utility, can be good, or you could end up realizing that you are doing really well, and you'll acknowledge that you're doing really well, which will help in many respects as well, because I know a lot of people that hold themselves to very high standards. That if they ask someone for help and the other person tries to help but isn't quite able to do everything, they'll go, man, that person was really nice. They did this, they did that, they did this. Yeah, they weren't able to do this, but they really tried to help me. And they have a good opinion of them. But if someone asks them for help and they do fucking everything, but they just do one thing even slightly poorly, they're going, man, I'm a piece of shit. I can't even do this. I didn't help them at all. And if they held themselves to the same standard, they would realize, you know what? Actually, I did a lot of good here, and I really helped people. This is something that I should be proud of. That I was a good person, that I did well, that I was doing good things.
Yeah.
Both of these, again, are good options.
Finding a person that is a pure altruist, that's probably going to be one of the most difficult searches you're ever going to come across.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everybody has it within themselves to care about everybody else.
Well, the way that I phrase it is, if you look at the population, and you look at any population really, it's going to break down into several different groups. So, one group is the obligate saints. These people are just the salt of the fucking earth, and it does not matter what situation they came from, what situation they're put into, they are just good fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
This is a ridiculous minority of people.
Right.
Then you have the obligate devils. Does not matter how pleasant their background was. Doesn't matter how well treated they were. What advantages they were given. They will always be rotten bastards. They will always do fucked up shit. There's examples of this when it comes to certain serial killers. Not all serial killers were of this group, but there are definitely some serial killers that were. Where you look at their history and you're going, oh, they had a family that, by all accounts, loved them. They weren't treated poorly throughout their childhood. They had a good childhood. They had a good life in general. But then on the weekends, they decided that they would break into people's houses, strangle them 5 times before they actually strangled them to death.
Yeah.
That's just someone who's pure fucking evil. They're obligate devils. Doesn't matter what you did to them throughout their life. They were going to be fucked up bastards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you have everyone else. And everyone else is a mixture of saint and sinner. A mixture of angel and demon. Where if they're in the right circumstance, they will be the greatest fucking person alive.
Yeah, being able to balance is the most important thing you could possibly do.
Yep. If they're in the wrong circumstance, they will be the most frightening person alive.
Yes. You know, it's... And the thing is, you know, again, he makes a good point. No one is truly altruistic, and no matter what, you're going to get something out of it.
The vast majority, like I said, there's going to be that small percentage that are the obligate saints, the obligate angels, where they will do something that they gain absolutely nothing from, except they get that sense of, I did what I should have done.
Mm.
And those people are great. I love those people. Like I said, they're a ridiculous minority, just like the obligate demons. The vast majority of us, yeah, we're this balancing act where we need to regiment ourselves. We need to be given some sort of background that is conducive, though it is not necessary that we have to have that background, because you can have been born in a shitty situation and decided, I'm going to live this down.
Yeah.
And I'm going to not be the shit that I came from.
Well, the problem, well, not the problem, but a problem that we face right now is that we are in a very exaggerated age of decadence
Mm-hmm.
where people just take a lot of things at face value, or they don't take it at face value, or they do, but it really depends on the personality, because greed is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Sin is everywhere. Just outright dickishness is everywhere. And people these days, you take away these cell phones and all that kind of stuff. I mean, back in the day when you saw somebody fighting, I mean, I'm old enough to remember this, it got broken up. These days, you see people fighting, you're just going to whip out that cell phone and just record it.
Yep.
When you see a fire, you put the fire onto it.
Yeah. There used to be some semblance of the old hue and cry, even after hue and cry was done away with.
Mm-hmm.
And then people got rid of that mentality entirely, which is an absolute fucking shame, because we should have that element of hue and cry. We should have that element of, if I see something that I can affect, that I could improve, I should do it.
Right.
If someone's in danger and I can make it so that they aren't in danger anymore, I should. If I see a fire, doesn't matter that it's not my place, doesn't matter that it's not my property, I should still try to make sure that everyone's safe and try to put out the fire.
Right. But people aren't doing that anymore.
Yep.
Their morals are just, it's not that their morals are out the window, it's just that their morals are being pushed aside for the chance at your 5 minutes of fame.
Yep. And the way that you get around that is you give better arguments and you explain how not living that way is better, because there's very few people that will come to a good example of a philosophy that I think would be rather beneficial for more people to adopt in the modern day is Stoicism as was outlined by Seneca. Which, have you ever read Letters from a Stoic?
Oh, man, it's been years. You'll have to forgive me, but my
not a problem at all.
Is not where it used to be.
Anyone that hasn't ever read Letters from a Stoic, or anyone that hasn't read it in a while, I recommend giving Letters from a Stoic a read again. Because the way Seneca outlines his philosophy is extremely appealing. And it's not just appealing in the way of, well, this makes me feel good. It's extremely appealing in the way that you look at it and you go, oh God, this is shit that I can apply right now. And this is something that I should be applying, and I should have been applying for quite some time now. A great example of this is something I keep citing because it was extremely impactful when it came to reading Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. And it was, he constantly was citing other philosophers from competing schools of philosophy. And as he was doing this, in letter after letter after letter, he got about 5-10 letters in minimum. And he's writing one of the other people that's from his school of philosophy. And he writes that you're probably getting really pissed off at me because I keep on citing Epicurus. I keep on citing these other philosophers, because he names 4 or 5 different philosophers in the previous letters.
Right.
None of them are from his school of thought. None of them are from Stoicism. They're all various other schools.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He just keeps on citing them. And then he says, you're probably getting annoyed with this, but here's the reason why I'm doing it. Because what they said here is correct. This is true. It doesn't matter that it came from another school. If our philosophy is going to be consistent, if our philosophy is going to be true, we need to acknowledge truth wherever it is first said and accept it as part of our own philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about friendship, inner selves, just not, who is worthy of being a friend, who should we take the word friend, don't take that lightly. Decide for yourself who you want to be in your inner circle.
Yep. And it is, like I said, absolutely beautiful, really important shit, in my opinion. And it hits far more strongly in me. It rang me like a bell versus I also read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius like a week earlier. And Marcus Aurelius left me feeling somewhat cold to Stoicism. I've heard a lot of people rant and rave about how amazing Marcus Aurelius was and how much it meant to them when they read it. So I had high hopes.
Right.
But Marcus Aurelius came off angry to me. And that spoiled almost everything. Because there's one point where he's saying that you should have put yourself beyond the insults of those around you. But the entire time that he's saying you need to put yourself beyond the insults of those around you, he's also effectively calling everyone pussies. So you need to put yourself beyond the insults of others, you pussy. That doesn't ring as poignant, as powerful, or as true as someone that's saying, yeah, you need to put yourself beyond the insults of others. In fact, here's an example. This emperor tried to have me killed.
Well, Nero. It was Nero, right?
Nero was the one who finally had him killed, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, how ironic, huh? But
on the third attempt of having him killed, he finally had him killed.
Well, yeah, I mean, he had Seneca, the Marcus Aurelius, and there was a third person I don't know, can't remember off the tip of my tongue, but he had these three philosophers that were your key Stoic philosophers, and it was just.
Well, it was Seneca he had killed. Marcus Aurelius was a different emperor, different time. But he had Seneca, he had two of Seneca's students, and he had one of Seneca's closest friends who was a Roman general. At the time. Because if you read about Nero's reign, the early part of Nero's reign is treated like a fucking golden age.
In comparison to the 2 or 3 previous and the rest of his reign,
No.
Yeah.
Not just in comparison to those. They're treated as a golden age comparable to the 5 good emperors.
Bullshit.
No. Early Nero reign is absolutely treated that way, and it's treated that way for fucking reason. Rome was improving. Rome was becoming glorious in a way that it hadn't been for a while due to the previous emperors. It was becoming strong, it was expanding, it was doing important shit, and life was improving for the average Roman during the early years of Nero. Right. And there's a very important reason for that. Nero had almost no power during the early years of Nero's reign because Nero trusted Seneca and this one Roman general. And Seneca and the Roman general decided that they would split the power of the emperor between the two of them and let Nero take all the credit, explain everything that they were doing in the most glowing of ways, making it sound like it was Nero that had been doing all of it. But in fact, everything that was done militarily was the one general. Everything that was done politically was Seneca. Rome went through a bunch of really awesome reforms, did amazing shit in the world, and then another one of Nero's advisors told him, said that there were people who were saying that the real emperors were Seneca and this one general. So Nero ordered Seneca to be banished. He ordered the general to be killed. And originally he was going to order both of them to be killed or off themselves. But he was prevailed upon by a number of his other advisors that offing Seneca would be bad. And Seneca had been so important to him because Seneca had trained him and taught him for so long.
Right.
That it would reflect poorly upon him to betray his teacher in this respect. So he changed the execution order to a banishment order, which at the time was also kind of an execution, but it was seen as a nicer execution. So Seneca was banished. The general was ordered to kill himself. The general did kill himself. Then Seneca was wandering around the periphery of the Roman Empire and did so for an extended period of time before being called back to Rome by Nero. He went back to Rome and started serving as Nero's advisor again, and then there was another increase in the stability of Rome while Seneca was his advisor. But then again, people started saying that Seneca was taking too much power and was being looked at as the real stability of Rome. So Nero started to get pissed off at him again. Then he was talked out of having him commit suicide. But then he started hearing that again, and that third time he went, "Fuck it, you're dead." And he ordered Seneca to commit suicide. So Seneca went into his bath, made sure that it was nice and hot, grabbed a blade, slit both of his arms open, sat down in his bath. His wife came in, saw what he was doing, got into the bath, slit both of her arms.
Oh, God.
Saying that she wasn't going to outlive her husband. So, as Seneca's sitting in his tub trying to bleed to death, he orders a couple scribes get sent into him, and he dictates an entire fucking book trying to bleed to death.
Jeez.
And he's still not dead. He feels kind of weak, but he's not dead. So he gets annoyed by this because he's trying to have done with it after he finishes narrating the book. So he grabs the knife again and he slits open both of his legs. And continues talking to the servants and the friends that have gathered into the bath room with him. And he's talking to his wife. At one point, his wife passes out. He thinks that his wife has died, so he orders that she be carried to their chamber and be given the proper funerary observances. So they carry her off. Turns out she had just passed out, and Nero then orders that she's bandaged so that it doesn't come out that he ordered the execution of both of them when he just ordered the execution of one, since that would make him look really bad if he ordered Seneca's wife to kill herself as well. So Seneca sits in the tub, now bleeding from his arms, bleeding from his legs, which he is just sliced open ridiculously. He's sliced to the bone in both of his arms and both of his legs at this point. And he sits there for like another hour. And he's still not dead. He's still just talking to people. And he's getting pissed off that, can I just get this over with? But it's more of that, I'm done. I'm going to die. Why is it taking so long? More than a, fuck this. This is pissing me off. It was more just a, really? Why am I alive? I should be dead. So he starts trying to get up out of the tub, realizes that he's bled enough that he's too weak to stand on his own. And he's destroyed his legs to the point where even if he could keep his balance, despite the blood loss, his legs would not be able to support him. So he orders a number of his servants to pull him out of the bath and carry him over to this one specific chamber, which the house that he was in, the massive estate that he was in, had this one chamber that ended up having a shit ton of poisonous gases went through this one chamber from the same vents that heated the water. So they he ordered them to take him in there, to lay him down in the room, close the door, and leave him there until morning. And that was how he ended up dying. He ended up gassing himself in his poisonous gas room. That was just meant to be an area to vent it away from the rest of the house.
Right. Well.
And that was how Seneca died. So Seneca survived 2 orders of death by Nero, survived the previous emperor ordering his death twice, and survived the emperor previous to that one ordering his death 3 times. Before finally submitting. And the emperor 2 prior, if I remember correctly, was Caligula. So survived 3 attempts at ordering his death by Caligula. Ridiculous person. And like I said, just the way that the tone of all the letters was very much this happy, jovial grandfather just talking to a favorite grandchild and educating them, or the dirt old teacher that has his favorite student that he is always encouraging. That was the tone of all the letters. And given the hell of his life, it made it mean a lot. Where, like I said, Marcus Aurelius came off scolding so much while he was trying to say that, yeah, you should be beyond getting scolded.
Mm-hmm.
Which, mixed messages there. Should I really be getting beyond being scolded by listening to someone scold me?
Well, I think that philosophy is a great thing to discuss, but I'm getting a bit tired, but I don't know about anybody else, but...
It is that time. I was just about
Yeah.
to...
I will also state, you don't need to disparage Caligula that much. He does a good enough time of it himself. It was Claudius who preceded Nero.
Right.
It was Claudius that preceded Nero, and I think it was Claudius was after Caligula. Wasn't it? Yeah, and I said that he survived the 3 emperors, Caligula being the first one who ordered his death 3 times, Claudius who ordered his death twice, and Nero who ordered his death 3 times, finally dying on the 3rd order of death from Nero.
Fair enough.
Crazy. Well, it's been a good chat. I'm glad I came back because we discussed some things that I really enjoyed discussing sometimes. So,
Shall we go for parting words? Donkey,
Absolutely.
I'll let you go first.
How should I put this? Big government is evil, everyone is greedy, and there's always a selfish reason.
Well put.
Moon?
Well, other than saying thank you very much for having me, my traveling exhibit is always available sometimes. Always available
Fantastic.
sometimes. But I will keep an eye out.
60% of the time it works every time.
Exactly. See, and there's only a 20% chance of that.
Nice.
But yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I'm hoping that we can find our way out of the situation that we find our way in. It's just going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, and it starts on the personal and close level.
Mm-hmm.
Because trying to change the entire society in one go, that
Not
is
gonna
impossible.
happen. Yeah.
Changing it by just talking to the people around you and changing the situations of the people around you, that'll do a hell of a lot. Especially if you infect them to do the same and they start doing it with theirs. Eventually it just builds until it changes everything.
Yeah. Getting active without being an activist.
Yep. Adam, by any chance, have you roused yourself? If so, you can unmute and say your parting words. I'll give you a couple moments. If not, then I will give my parting words. And Tyrannius says 1982 in chat.
Yes.
And Nero, he was not an idiot, he was a madman. The idiot was probably Iargabalus, because he was insane and he did shit like his lottery of poisonous snakes, as well as at one point he ordered an onager built within one part of Rome, which he loaded with baskets of poisonous snakes and just launched them into various parts of the Roman city because he found it amusing.
Wow.
Absolute fucking madman.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like Adam is still gone, so I'll just give my parting of, if you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And with that, have a good night all. The zoo is closed. This is when you two say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I'm assuming his braying was him saying goodbye. Goodbye, chat. Now, just to wait for this to actually